Hello, friends, and welcome back to Ghouls Night In, the spooky chat show with your best ghoul friends. I'm Penny Snark.
And I'm Midge Munster.
Midge, I promised you something strange today.
It's true, you did.
So I've reached into my bag of tricks and weird obsessions and produced something that I think is pretty fun. Are you familiar with the nutshell studies of unexplained deaths?
No.
Well, I am excited to tell you, and we're going to find out all about those today. So let's start way back. Apply your flashback filter to this.
Diddle-a-doo, diddle-a-doo,
So
diddle-a-doo,
exactly.
diddle-a-doo.
So in Chicago, back in 1878, a woman was born named Frances Glessner Lee. Well, technically Lee was later, but just for ease's sake, we will just call her that for now. So Frances was a wealthy heiress, and she suffered from a severe case of tonsillitis as a little girl, and ended up.
Relatable.
I know she ended up undergoing surgery for it, way back in these olden times, where obviously that was kind of a last ditch effort. But this was
Mhm.
credited with spurring her interest in medicine. So she it's always kind of weird hearing about, the history of things that women did at this time are never as detailed as you would like.
Right.
Apparently, it sounds like she just kind of followed some doctors around a bit and learned some stuff about nursing. She was married at 19 and had 3 children, but actually eventually divorced her husband. Also wild, back in 1914.
Yeah.
But that guy's not important. What's important is her
I'm,
brother.
cha- I'm changing the title of our podcast to That Guy's Not Important.
Yes, truly the Ghouls Night In story. Um, her brother, also interested in medicine, went to Harvard Medical School, and through him, she became friends with a guy named George McGrath, who was one of his fellow medical students and was particularly interested in the field of death investigation. And it was
Ooh.
through George that Frances was introduced to the developing field of forensic investigation.
Hell yeah. Come on.
Hell yeah. So Frances was, a very classy, high society lady, loved throwing elaborate dinner parties for detectives and investigators to come and talk about solving crimes. Podcasts were not invented yet, so she had that true crime coming straight to her. She
So I was going to
was
say,
like,
it's the
here we
OG
go.
true crime. Yeah.
Hell yeah. So in 1931, she actually founded the creation of the legal medicine department at Harvard, the first of
Oh,
its
wow.
kind. That was all dedicated to investigation, things like that. But just giving money was not enough for Frances. She was really passionate about forensic science, the importance of investigating a crime scene and collecting evidence. So she decided to make a bunch of murder dollhouses.
I'm sorry. What?
Hmm. Hell yeah. So, the nutshell studies of unexplained death are a series of 20 intricate miniature dioramas depicting death.
Well,
So, there you go.
hello. New hyperfixation unlocked. Continue.
Enjoy. So,
It's like
each
Polly Pocket for murder.
Yeah, so each room was built on a 1 inch scale. So 1 inch equals 1 foot, and was based on a real life unexplained death case. Um, the evidence and details of the crime scene were accurate to the police files and reports from the real event, but the rooms themselves were like imagined by Francis. So these are you can look up pictures. I will post a photo, obviously, on our Instagram along with this episode. But these are extremely elaborate little miniature dioramas. They had working lights and doors, things like functioning mouse traps, and of course, corpses with the accurate amount of decay based on the crime scene. So each room has a written solution that explains the clues you're supposed to find in it and what the investigator should have noted. So she built these throughout the 30s and 40s and donated them to Harvard, where she would host seminars, bringing in investigators to teach them about methods for collecting evidence. Because, this was the olden times where people were used to just walking into a crime scene and being like, ah, I guess somebody died here.
I
And
think I'll touch everything with my bare
exactly. I
hands.
bet
Yeah.
I should touch stuff and I don't know, lick it maybe. She was one of the things that got reported a lot was like she was, very much recommending this theory of like using a geometric search approach to like have specific zones so you know where all the evidence comes from and stuff like that. So if you attended one of these seminars, you would have 30 minutes to look at the model and try to identify the solution and figure out what this death was caused by.
I have Googled this while you've been like image
Yes.
search. These are insane.
They're so cool. So I have a list of the places, the dwellings depicted in the diorama. We've got a 3-room dwelling, a log cabin. There's the blue bedroom, the dark bathroom, a burned cabin, unpapered bedroom, pink bathroom, attic, woodsman shack, barn, saloon, and jail, striped bedroom, living room, 2-story porch, kitchen, garage, parsonage, parlor, and bedroom. So obviously, that's a wide array, a very creative assortment of rooms.
Yes. Yeah. There's a few that I'm very interested to know more about.
Yes. So for this work, obviously the dioramas themselves, as well as all of the endowments that she provided. She is often known as the mother of forensic science. And in 1943, she was officially named a captain by the New York Hampshire State Police, which makes her technically the first female police captain. Obviously, like they didn't call it an honorary position, but it's not like she was like
Out in the
working
field,
as a
right?
police captain.
Right.
But still, that's pretty cool.
No, it is.
Yeah, and when the Harvard Department of Legal Medicine disbanded in the 60s, the models were donated to the Maryland Medical Examiner's Office, where they continued to be used for training for many years. And in 2017, there was actually an exhibition of these at the Smithsonian Museum titled Murder is Her Hobby.
Wow.
Is pretty cool. So a lot of this is very cool. Some parts are a little bit problematic. So as we kind of said, Frances created all of these rooms out of her own imagination. The articles that I read were definitely like some of her imaginings of like these are places that low class people live are a little a little classist. We'll say she was a fancy society lady and she was like, ooh, this is probably what a saloon is like. um, there were several places described the interior design of some of these as tawdry. So, ooh, we'll
That's awesome.
see.
Yeah, in looking at my quick Google search, that's I don't know any impoverished people that live like this, but that's okay.
Right. Yeah. But obviously we love a lady who wants to use her crafty skills for something macabre. And
Absolutely.
I love this combo of like a fancy society heiress and like this incredibly detailed like murder scene. It's like such a flex of like, your feminine skills being used in like a
Yeah.
weird and disruptive way. And
Well,
like,
and
I
again, just
mean,
like in the time, I mean, it's like what we talked
mhm,
about with Mary Shelley, like for a woman to be so kind of invested in something that was so gauche and like
right?
would not be ladylike to be interested in is always just fascinating to
Yeah.
delve into that space and time for that person.
It is, and I always love, like, I don't know, maybe it's just because I relate to it being
Right.
a delicate fancy lady myself who likes weird things, but, like, I loved so many articles, like, emphasized the fact that it was like, no, yeah, like, she was incredibly into, like, hosting these, like, gatherings. She, like, personally, like, figured out the menus and the floral arrangements, but they were all about for talking about murder. So like you got to have a beautiful centerpiece while you're going to talk about a killing. So
Yeah, obviously.
and obviously, you can draw a direct line from this to the spooky dollhouses and miniatures that we see today. This is obviously something that is very popular on, like the TikToks. You've got Southern Gothic Dollhouse and other folks who
Yeah.
are making just like these very intriguing miniature experiences.
That's the first thing that I thought of was that I don't remember their name. There's a is it the Southern Gothic one that they're making like room by room?
Yeah, that has like a she has like a whole like plot line for it.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
they'll like show you like, oh, you move this chair and there's a scratch in the wallpaper and like
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, that's so cool.
And there was another artist who was mentioned in the Smithsonian article I read named Cynthia von Bueller, who was inspired by these to actually build a dollhouse that created the scene of her grandfather's murder.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
to like kind of and eventually it developed into an immersive theater experience called Speakeasy Dollhouse.
Oh wow.
That seems like it was when I was like Googling it, there were like, lots of people being like, should I go to Sleep No More or Speakeasy Dollhouse? So
Oh
like
wow. So
it
like on that
was
level.
in that kind of vibe
That's
experience.
that's one way to process your trauma.
Right. It's like sometimes you just gotta make a dollhouse about
Sometimes
it.
you gotta make a dollhouse.
Yeah, oh, and I should have explained this before. So they're called the nutshell studies, because I guess she like described it as being like, oh, you should be able to like look at a room and find the truth in a nutshell. And
Mhm.
like kind of the idea of this like dedicated I'm cupping my hands together, which you can't tell on the podcast, but like an enclosed space that holds all of these like secrets and all of the
Right.
information that you need in order to solve it. And I do believe that you can get like a PDF that has all of the solutions for the dollhouses in them. They were not like publicly out there since people were still using them for training. One of the examples that people specifically talked about in the article is I think the bathroom one. There is a woman there, and you're supposed to be able to identify from like witness a combination of witness statements that you read and like the fibers on the doorknob that she that this was a suicide, that she had rigged it up herself kind of.
Hmm. That's I
So
was looking at these photos, I was like, a lot of these just seem like really sad suicides. But
yes. But like
there's
that's
one though, did you see the one where it's like a person like in a I can't tell if it's like a sink or a bathtub or like a trough, but
ooh.
there's it's like a girl and she's like half in it and there's water just like pouring on her face
Oh no.
from the spigot and I'm like I need more information. This is silly.
Yeah, some of they look pretty wild, and it's weird to be like, oh, the to think of like these were like
Actual, right.
actual crimes, because like it definitely looks like any, spooky dollhouse that someone might make. And apparently, so I didn't see if they meant in today's time, but someone said that they cost like $3,000 to $4,000
Oh, I believe
to
that.
make, and I don't know if that would, and I assume that's in today money, but like
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy. Oh yeah, I see the person who's in the
In
tub.
the like, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like the Gashly Chrome Tinies effect, where
Yes,
it's like
very much.
something that's, inherently tied up in your childhood nostalgia,
Mhm.
but then it's like dark and weird. So it's I
Yes.
just found myself I know that's like the incorrect response to have, but I was looking at the photos, I just found myself like giggling.
Right?
It's
Yeah,
like, this
like
is wild. This is so
it's
silly.
it is. I really like the kitchen one, where someone's like lying face down in front of the oven and they just have like a little steak in the oven.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just they are like it is that weird intersection of something that's like cute but also macabre that just kind of makes it makes your brain like disassociate
Like,
from it
what
because
yeah,
you're
like,
like,
what am I
wait, this is
looking
so
at?
like dissonant that it's like it's cute but it's also a murder.
Feels very Jessica Fletcher, like
Yes. Oh, so I was not able to figure out a source for this, but one article said that she might be the inspiration for Jessica
that was
Fletcher.
my immediate when you started talking about her, I was like, "Oh, well, in the Smithsonian exhibit name, that what would you say it was murder is her hobby
Yes.
or something?" I was like, "Okay, so Jessica Fletcher."
Yes. Yeah, I was trying to find that and I was like, who said this? Like, where was this?
Yeah.
But it would be delightful if so. And I mean,
I guess if any of our listeners don't know, Jessica Fletcher is
oh, yes.
the protagonist of Murder She Wrote. So I'm sure you at least have heard of the program.
Yes, the program. Yeah, but yeah, she was just this lady doing her own thing. She was like, "I'm divorcing my husband and I'm into forensic science. I'm gonna make my dollhouses, and this is what I'm about," and I respect that.
Well, it's certainly original, if nothing else. Like that's definitely something that no one else in her time was doing, I would say.
Yes, definitely.
That's, I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm sure Penny will post photos, but
Mhm.
definitely just go peruse all these online as well after you listen to this episode because they are incredibly detailed and
Yes.
just like fascinating. So, are they still on display or no?
They are not current. So the Smithsonian exhibit ended, but I believe they returned to the Maryland Medical Examiner. So
Mm,
theoretically, you could still see them there. I'm not 100% sure. I remember them. I remember like, I feel like I maybe first heard about this when the Smithsonian exhibit happened because I remember being like, wait, what? Murder doll houses? I gotta know more about this.
yeah. Well, if you need a last minute niche Halloween costume, go as Frances and
Yes.
tell her story. Carry
Please.
a dollhouse with you with a
Every
tiny
dollhouse
corpse
be like, "This
inside.
is this is my nutshell. This is
This
my
is
nutshell study of unexplained death."
that reminds me so
Yeah.
much of, and this is off topic, but at
No, go for it.
Christmas, my family had these ornaments that were like my favorite ornaments as a kid that were literally little nutshells that you
Oh,
opened up and
yeah.
they had scenes inside them. Do you
Mhm.
have something like that?
Yeah.
Um, that's what I'm picturing is just like those Christmas ornaments, but you open it up and it's like a ghastly murder.
Yes. Incredible. Yeah, so that's a short but sweet one. I just wanted to pick out something that was intriguing to me and share it with all of you if you maybe hadn't heard about Frances and her amazing dioramas before.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm so this is this is one of those weird things that hits right in you and I's like sweet spot niche
Yes.
of just like weird feminine feminine macabre, as our friend
Yes,
Amanda would say.
indeed, indeed. Gotta get a little bit of that feminine macabre going on. All right. Thank you all for joining us today. As we said earlier, you can definitely find photos of these nutshell studies over on our Instagram at Ghouls Night in Pod. And if you have been enjoying the episode, please do leave us a review. That helps us out so much. And if you cannot leave a review on your podcast app, you can always send one to us. And I believe Midge has one to share today.
I do. This is an Instagram submitted review from Megan. And she said, "Hi, ladies. I just wanted to see if I can leave a review for the podcast because I love it so much. I would definitely give it 10 stars. Oh, thank
Woo!
you so much. It means so much when we both get our
We
own
love our
5
stars.
stars. Yeah. I love listening at night when I'm working on my spooky crochet projects. Ooh, more feminine
Ooh.
crafts. We love it. I always catch my husband eavesdropping." And I love the conversations it sparks at dinner. Thank you guys for being you, and I can't wait to hear what topics you come up with next.
Aw, thank you, Megan. I hope you and your husband enjoy talking about murder doll houses.
Yes, enjoy over your dinner.
Yes. All right. Well, if you, we already plugged the podcast Instagram, Ghouls Night in Pod. And if you are looking for yours truly, you can find me across the internet at Penny Snark. I am currently doing spooky days of Halloween outfits every day. So check that out if you like spooky clothes.
Woo! And you can find me all over the web at Midge Monster.
And until next time,
Goodbye.
goodbye.